Welcome, everybody. My name's Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop's version of Social Security filing strategies and tax strategies. If you could, I need to do a quick audio check. So just to make sure that we're on point. And then we're going to do a quick piece of trivia right until the top of the hour. So bear with me if you could, if you're on one of the major channels, X or Instagram or Facebook. I just need to make sure that the main ones are up and running. So if you could use the chat function, just click on that. If you can hear my voice, just give me a thumbs up or a sounds good, anything like that. Audio's good. And I'm in Pennsylvania this evening. I'd love to hear what state you're in so that I get to know we usually have people from all over. It's always nice to see. Just chime in if you would. Just use the chat function and press the button. Let me know that you can hear me, and then we can get started. Well, most people show up closer to the top of the hour. So if you are on, I am absolutely speaking to you. Like Carol, thank you so much. Looks like Carol is on Facebook. Denise is from Texas and from Facebook. And then looks like TN YouTube. YouTube. Okay, T YouTube is on audio, is on YouTube. So sounds good. And so is Barbara. Thanks. Sounds good. Thanks for letting me know you're from lots of Texas tonight. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going to start some trivia just to keep you entertained for a few minutes until we get to the top of the hour. Let me pull it up here, and here we go. All right, just this is just fun. No penalties for wrong answers, so don't worry. You can answer by just typing in the chat, just like you just did, with a quick answer. They're all multiple choice, A, B, C, or D. Here we go. How are the first three numbers of your Social Security number derived? So everybody has 9 numbers, 3, then 2, then 4. How do the first 3 get there? Is it A, they represent the zip code of your birth city, B, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office, C, they're completely random, or D, the state where you were born? A, B, C, or D? Just throw in your answers and we will move on. Got lots of questions for you. We'll try and get through as many as we can before the top of the hour. Take a guess. Just have some fun with this. I will eliminate the random one for you because it's not possible. If you have noticed your spouses or somebody else, it's very common to run into people who are living close to you. So where do they come from? Is it A, zip code of your birth city, B, zip code of the issuing Social Security office, D, the state where you were born? Wait for a couple more answers. There's a B. I see a C. See a couple B's. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's take a quick look at the answer. It is B. Looks like we have some smart people in the audience tonight. Yeah, it represents the actual office where you got your Social Security number. And if you didn't go into the office, you did it somehow online these days. It represents the closest office, and it's from their zip code. So good job. All right. Why have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120 as their Social Security number? Was it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? We know there's lots of identity theft going on out there, right? B, the Social Security machine got stuck and the number just issued 40,000 different people the same number. Or C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people? A, B, or C? A, B, or C? So interesting answers to this one. A is obviously the massive identity theft. B, it's a mechanism issue. C, it's something weird. Is it A, B, or C? I see a C, couple of B's. Interesting. All right. If you've just joined us, we're just doing some quick Social Security trivia before we get to the top of the hour, which is just in a couple minutes. So if you want to join in, hop on and just use your chat function to answer. C, C, C. Oh, lots of C's. Wow. Okay. All right, let's take a look. The answer is C. Lots and lots of smart people tonight. It was a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people. The marketing executive asked for his assistant to borrow his card, thinking it would put it as a placeholder, and forgot, and it was sent to the printer that way. And literally hundreds of thousands of these were sold. And with that Social Security card, which is an exact duplicate of a real one in there, which made it maybe confusing. Not sure. All right. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number issued to you? Not a new card, but a new number. A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers. B, you're experiencing ongoing issues after being the victim of identity theft. C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life. Or D, all of the above. A, B, C, or D. If we hurry, we can get through one more. Let's try this. If you could respond as quickly as you can, we'll be able to get through at least another one before we start. A, B, C, or D. I see an A. I see a B. Interesting. A couple more B's. A D. A couple more D's. Some more C's. Interesting. B's and D's. B's and D's seem to have it tonight. All right, let's take a look. Thanks for participating. It's D. It is any one of those. Any one of those is good enough for Social Security to give you a new number. Here's the thing. They give you the new number, but you've got to get your employer and your creditors to switch. And that is no easy task. All right, this is probably going to be our last question. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? Was it A, 1936 for $28.17, B, 1937 for $19.67, or C, 1940 for $22.54? I'll give you a little bit of information that could be helpful. The year that Social Security was signed into law was 1935. So was it A, 1936, B, 1937, C, 1940? Again, first year that Social Security was signed into law was 1935. What year was the first benefit paid? I see some B's. There's an A. Interesting. All right. Just throw in your answer real quick. We're right at the top of the hour, so I'm only going to take about 10 more seconds. Another A. 36 guess. All right, so I'm guessing that's an A. Another A. I think the A's have it tonight. Let's take a look. It's C. It's 1940. So you might say, well, wait a minute, why? I'm not sure we had a guess that was 40. But the reason is Social Security is self-funded. It collects its own income and then distributes that income as benefit. So it had to actually collect enough money to be able to actually spend it out and pay out benefits in a sustainable way. They couldn't just start without knowing that they could do that. All right, let me pull up the actual workshop and we're going to get started here. Let me just jump in for a second and remind you, my name is Dave Harden. I'll do a little bit more formal introduction in a moment, but let me, before we get started, do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm asked often, how long is this going to take? It's about an hour and 20 minutes, at the end of which I always do a Q&A, a question and answer period. You are welcome to stay for that. By way of explanation and asking you to help, I'm going to answer your questions. That's a given, but it would help us tremendously if we didn't have a lull at that point when we start going into the Q&A. To do that, if you have a question tonight, if you think you're going to ask a question, if during the workshop you find something that spurs a question in you and you want to ask it, don't hesitate. Type it in. Use the chat function just like we've just done using the trivia. You can just type in your question, and then when we get to that point at the end of the workshop doing the Q&A, we'll already have them in, and our tech team will line them up so that we don't have a lull. We can just start answering questions and keep this as economic in terms of timing as possible. All right, let's get started. Let me move on here and do a little bit more formal introduction. My name is Dave Harden. I am a RFC, a registered financial consultant. That's a designation from the IARFC, the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. That is for planning purposes, particularly in the area of retirement planning and retirement, managing assets in retirement. I also carry the NSSA, the National Social Security Advisor designation. That is the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. About less than 2,000 people have it. I'm stunned by that figure always. It's the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes. And there are about 1 million advisors in the country that call themselves planners, retirement planners. I don't know how you do that without an expertise in taxes and Social Security. So you'll hear me talk a little bit more about that later on. I'm also the author of the Social Security Workbook we're going to offer you at the end of the evening here. And I think you'll enjoy that. We've gotten tons and tons of feedback. You guys are amongst more than 100,000 people that have watched this workshop over the years. It's changed some, obviously, with times and as Social Security has changed, but we're very proud of the work that we do here. That being said, I own a registered investment advisory firm, an RIA. I own it with my son, who I'm ecstatic about. There is no joy greater in my life than be able to work with him and own something with him that we're very proud of, that we've built together. But City Center Advisors is the company I own. It is, we've done incredibly well. We're extraordinarily successful. We have, 1,216 client accounts over 43 different states, offices in several states. We're very successful. And I'm here to tell you, I have to tell you this. The SEC requires me to let you know that I am a Series 65 advisor. I carry the designation that also makes me a fiduciary advisor. So I act as a fiduciary in all my interactions with clients and with prospective clients and with the audience here tonight as well. But I also need to let you know that's not what this is about. I'm not here to make recommendations. We're not going to talk about what you should invest in and how you should invest. This is focused on taxes and Social Security tonight. That's what we're going to deal with. All right. That being said, why are we here? Why is Social Security such a big deal? Each day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. That's 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month. Last year, 3.64 million people reached age 65. And that's going to continue for about the next 11 years. Why is it such a big deal? because so many people are using it and want it and have paid into it, and they're reaching that age. It's a big deal because of that. Maybe more importantly, 65% of retired middle income Americans derive more than half of their retirement income from Social Security alone. It's a huge part of how we retire these days. And then since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people, that would be bad, but I mean 84,000 corporations. Some of those individual corporations, one corporation, many of them have more than 100,000 employees. One day they offered a pension, the board met, and the next day they said, we're not going to do this anymore. And it fundamentally changed retirement in the United States of America. When I first started in the industry way back in the late 70s, that's a long time ago, we called retirement the three-legged stool. Social Security, your pension, and your savings. These days, for almost all of us, well, not almost all of us, but a huge portion of us, it's a two-legged stool. It's your savings and your Social Security. And, if you've ever sat on a two-legged stool, it takes some balancing. 46.1% of Americans, listen to this. This is, I think, the most shocking statistic tonight. 46.1% of Americans, almost half of us, pass away with less than enough to fund our own funeral. We're effectively broke. Half of us. That's not the poorest among us. Half of us gets really deep into middle class. And if you don't know why that's happening, it should send a chill down your spine. Because you've got to know, how in the world are you going to keep that from happening to you if you don't know how it happens in the first place? We're going to dig into this. All right. So, do you insure your home, your car, your health? If you're looking at Social Security, your health is obviously taken care of through Medicare when you hit 65, and it's an insurance program. Most people, oh no, that's a government program. No, it's a government-sponsored insurance program that you pay dearly for. And your car, you don't really have a choice. I live in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, if you don't have insurance, it's a pretty big deal. And then what about your home? Well, if you have a mortgage, you certainly have insurance. If you don't, maybe you're just foolish. People insure big things. What about your retirement? Most people don't think of Social Security as an insurance program, but that is, for retirement purposes, exactly what it is. It is a government-sponsored retirement insurance plan. And it's been incredibly effective. All right. This is census data. When you're planning your Social Security, almost always the first question is, how long am I going to live? How long do I need to plan for? If I'm not going to live long, should I take it early? If I'm going to live long, should I wait as long as I can? Those are questions that you've got to start asking. So this is census data. It says that if you're a single male, age 65, you have a 50% chance of living to 85. That probably doesn't surprise many people. But you have a 25% chance of living to 92. 1 in 4. If you're a single female, 50% chance you're living to 88. 50% chance you're living to 88. 25% chance you're living to 94. And maybe the most surprising thing here is if you're a couple, two people that care about each other, that's all it takes. If you're the male in that couple, you have a 50% chance. Listen to this, guys. A 50% chance you're living to 92. And if you're the female, a 50% chance you're living to 97. Why? Why are couples living so much longer? Because they care about one another. Because 4 or 5 months ago, my wife saw my back and saw something and said, hold still, and walked up and looked at it, got a magnifying glass, said, we're making an appointment, and made me go to the dermatologist because she was concerned. That's the kind of thing that keeps couples living longer. They hear a rattle in your chest. They hear you breathe funny. They hear you doing things, snoring at night. They care, and they say something. That, that the reason my wife said something is because my sister 10 years ago died of skin cancer. We were those kids that ran out in the first week of summer and got burned to get it over with when we were teenagers. I'm sure that I'm not the only. There are a lot of people on here tonight, maybe 100 people on here. That know, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I hope I am, but I'm sure I'm not. And she paid a terrible price for that. Undetected. When they found it, they didn't understand what it was. They had literally had to get a DNA test of the actual cancer to figure out what it was, and it was melanoma, but they didn't know. And then she was gone. It just went quick. So we're hyper vigilant about that stuff, and as well we should be. But when it comes to this, living longer is something that you have to deal with. This is Ethel Carterham. She's 115, almost 116, by the way. She's the oldest living person in the world. She hasn't been that person long. Before her was Sister Lucas. Sister Lucas was 116 when she passed away. She took the place of Connie Tanaka, who was in Japan, who was 119. She died in 2022. Before her, there was a woman from Jamaica who was 122. We're living longer and longer and longer. And why do I bring this up? Because, look, I sort of do this for a living. It's important to me. My clients expect me to know what's going on. If you looked at the world's, the oldest living people in the world 15 years ago, there was a list. You looked at the 100, there were a couple of Americans on it. Very few. You look at it today, it's chunk full. Our parents and grandparents are living longer than we ever thought they would. Many of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you're caring for them, or you're visiting them on a regular basis, or you're as shocked as I am when I see people that are over 100 or close to it. This is a reality that we're facing today, and it's going to get even bigger. I almost said worse, but it's not really worse to live a long life. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. Basic benefits, how we get Social Security. Strategies for married couples, for divorced individuals, for widows and widowers. If you're single, going, hey, Dave, what about me? Social Security was created for you. It's all about you. But boy, do you see the next line? Taxes. I'm going to dig into taxes tonight, and I want you to pay attention because not just if you're single, anybody, it's a big deal. It is massively affecting Social Security, and you've got to be aware of it, and you got to prepare for it. And then coordinating benefits and why that's so important. Okay. The basics. How do you get Social Security? You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid into Social Security and your employer matched that. If you were single or self-employed, you've already figured out that you didn't pay half, you paid both sides of that with zero discount. Then they used the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. What does that mean? Well, they don't take the first 35 years or the last or the middle. They take individual years, the largest that you have, and they take 35 of them, add them all up to get your actual total Social Security income, and then divide by 35 to figure out what your average annual income is. Now, they take each individual year and they prorate it to today's dollars. So if you earned $25,000 in 1982, that's worth about 4.8 times that today. So well over 100,000, almost 135, 140,000. It's a lot of money. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to replace those years where I didn't make a lot of money, you might want to check the numbers because your 120,000 today may not beat that. Now it might, but you want to make sure that you know rather than do it sort of blindly. Now, those 35 years are important for a couple of other reasons. If you don't have 35 years, guess what? They find your average by taking the highest, all the years that you worked, if you don't have 35, and then adding them all together, prorating them, adding them all together, and then they still divide by 35. So it's really important if you've got 34 years. If you know much about math, you know that if you're dividing a number and you're adding zeros to it to divide it, it's going to really reduce the outcome dramatically. You want as few zeros as you can get. So if you're on that edge, or my wife fits into this category. She was a teacher, and then we raised kids, and she stopped working, and then she went back to work. But when she was ready for retirement, she didn't have 35 years. And we thought, oh, no big deal. She's going to take my benefit, half of mine, which would have been more than hers, but she wasn't allowed to, at least because I hadn't taken mine yet. I'll explain that more in a few minutes. Okay, so they take you need 40 credits to qualify for a full retirement benefit. A credit is 1 quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on, where you earned at least this year $1,890. So if you earn $1,890, you get 1 credit. You earn $10,000 in the first quarter, you get 1 credit. You have to earn it over in the actual quarter that you worked. 10 years working every quarter would be 40 credits. That's why they say 10 years of work history. That $1,890, by the way, that's less than $8,000 a year. Where does that come from? It's the formula that they use, but that $1,890 has gone up dramatically. If you go back to, I think I said 1982 before, if you go back to 1982, it was about $218. So a big difference between that and today, but still a very small amount, particularly with inflation over the last few years. It's not a lot of money. So once you've got that, are there any exclusions, any reductions? Well, the answer is there used to be some big ones. But last year, they passed a thing called the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025. It was signed into law on January 5th, and it took away some big ones. So if you worked for the government before, or the military, or you worked for the railroad with at least 10 years and you had a pension, or some state and local governments, county governments, school districts, where you worked and earned a pension, and while you were paying into that pension, that particular organization opted out of Social Security. So if you work for a school district where you paid into the pension, they had the right to opt out of Social Security, and that allowed you to put more into the pension. Not bad. I'm not saying that's bad or good, but you didn't have any Social Security as a result of that. But what typically happened there is a government worker or a school teacher might have retired after 30 years. They started work when they were 25. At 55, they decided to retire, and then they went to work in the private sector. And it didn't take very long, 10 years, and they are qualified for Social Security because they've got those 40 credits. Well, the government came in a couple decades ago and said, hey, we don't like this. And they would say, because you didn't have, it's a weird number, 31 years, because you don't have full 31 years, we're going to reduce That's what the WP is, the windfall elimination provision. They're going to reduce the amount that you get from Social Security. You still keep your pension, but we're going to reduce the amount that you get. And the GPO, the government pension offset or grumpy partner offset, affected your spouse. Let's say I worked for the federal government for 40 years. I have a wonderful pension, a huge pension. I've earned it. It's wonderful. I've selected the joint and survivor benefit. So if something happens to me, my wife gets it. She gets that pension. So I've probably thought in my head 100 times, hey, she'll be fine. She has her Social Security. She has my pension. If something happens to me, she'll be better off than when I'm alive. Here's the problem. Because she didn't have that 31 years, she's going to get my pension, but she's going to get a reduced Social Security. Or, listen to this, guys, or they're going to eliminate it altogether. So if she has even less years, less than 10 to 15, they're going to say, bye-bye, it's gone. You get your pension, you don't get any Social Security. Well, this is the seed of unfairness. You paid for the Social Security. You put into it. Your employer put into it. It followed every rule. How can they take it away? Well, Congress finally saw that that was the case and said, hey, we're going to get rid of these. So the GPO and the WP are completely gone. They don't affect you anymore. If this did affect you, because it happened last year, they're paying you back the money that they withheld all the way to, don't get too excited, December of 2023. Not before that, but it's something. And then forward, you'll get your full amount of your benefit. All right, how does Social Security work? You contribute 6.2% of every dime that you make up to a maximum of $184,500 in earnings this year. That's been prorated. It is continuing to be prorated. Eventually, it will get to about $1 million. I don't know why they don't roll it up to $1 million right now, but it will get there. This used to be much lower. 2014, that was about 114,000, I think. If you go back 5 years before that, it was in the high 80,000. It's continually gone up. Now, 6.2 plus 6.2 your employer contributes means 12.4% of every dollar that you've made has gone into your Social Security account. That's a lot of money. That 12.5% is 1/8 of your pay. Think about how much you've made. It's a lot of money. And then think about prorating that or putting that, growing it over 40 or 50 years. It starts to add up. It's a tremendous amount. I think Business Insider did an article in their magazine 4 or 5 years ago. They looked at average couple, $50,000 in joint income, and said that on average, that couple would have contributed between Social Security and Medicare out of on their behalf would have contributed about $740,000 over the course of their lives before they retired at 65. It's a huge amount of money. Some of you are just saying, hey, can I just have that back? And I get it, but that's not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. All right, today's contributions cover today's benefits. Basically, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. It's been that way since its inception. The money that goes in today, next month pays somebody else. This is why, look, this has worked incredibly well. When Social Security was written into law in 1935, the Social Security retirement age was 65. The average male lived to 63. So it was a little bit of a wink and a nod, right? They couldn't afford to pay for everybody. They paid for the people that lived longer than they expected them to live. Now, that's nowhere near, I just showed you earlier what the expectation is. A male age 65 is supposed to live at least 50% chance of living to 85. So it's gone up tremendously, 22 years longer, and with potential payouts for that entire period of time, if not longer. It's changed everything. But here's why it worked. Back then, the people in 1935 who were over 65 were tiny. So when our parents and grandparents paid into the system for them, there were way more of them than there were people receiving it. And then our parents and grandparents had the baby boom generation, the largest generation at that point in history, the largest generation of any country other than China in that history. It was massive. I guess India might have qualified too. Um, it was massive, huge. 77 million of us paying for a much smaller amount of our parents who lived past 65. Each generation successively bigger, and then boom. Do you see the problem? 77 million baby boomers. Anybody know how many millennials there are? There's more, 81 million of them. 81 million. But that's a little better than 1-to-1. If you think about that for a minute, you've got to ask the question about solvency. Where does this leave us? Well, I've got a very different take on solvency than you might have heard before. And I am going to share it with you because, look, I want you to understand this not from a fear perspective. I had a wonderful grandfather. When my mother divorced, he came to live with us. His wife passed away the same year my parents divorced, and he came and lived with us. And my grandfather, he grew up in the old country. He was from Austria. He spoke very good English. He spoke French. He learned English in England. He was a super educated guy, and he was very good to me. But he used to have these sayings, and one of them was, "Being old is hell, but being old and broke is another one. Is way worse. It's the seventh level of hell." But the one that applies to this is he would tell me that you never, ever, ever make a financial decision out of fear. It will always be wrong. You never make financial decisions out of fear. But many of us are choosing to take our Social Security based on innuendo and rumor and fear about whether it's solvent or not. Here's the thing. 1983 was a big year for Social Security for a couple of reasons. It was a big year for baby boomers and Social Security. It's the year you got the letter. I don't know if you remember the letter, but you received a letter in about August of 1983. I remember it like it was yesterday. My wife and I got the same letter, separate letters from Social Security in the mail. We're like, why are we getting letters from Social Security? We're not even close to thinking about retirement. So we open the letters, and they're identical, except for our names. And it says, hey, since Social Security's inception in 1935, full retirement age, FRA, full retirement age has always been 65. But since you were born after 1943, between 43 and 54, your full retirement age is now 66. And for every year you're born after 1954, add 2 months. So 1955 is going to be 66 and 2 months, 56, 66 and 4 months, and so on until we reach birth year 1960, where it caps out, where your full retirement age is now 67 for everybody born in 1960 or beyond. Now, my wife and I read the letter, shook our head, weren't sure how to react to it. But the next day at work, I remember it was still on my mind, and I was thinking about it. and I'm having a cup of coffee or some water or something at the break station, and I'm having a conversation with somebody else asking if they got this letter, and sure enough, they had gotten it too. And we're talking about it, and somebody I heard for the first time in my life something that I've heard hundreds of times since. Somebody a few feet away who was overhearing our conversation said, "What are you guys worried about Social Security for anyway? It's not going to be around when you retire." Now, I can't see you guys, so I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I would not at all be surprised if you can. And if you can, if that rings a bell, that you've heard that too. It's very common. People say it all the time. Here's the thing. I I, I have a daughter who or a granddaughter who just wound up in college this year. And very proud of her. She's at a very fine school. And somebody told her recently, don't worry about Social Security. You better prepare for it. It's not going to be around. I don't know why. People love to be naysayers, but that's the way it is. Here's the thing. They were dead wrong. It's here, and it's not just here. It's way better than it was in 1983. It's way better, unbelievably better than it was in 1935. It's massively better. Now, here's the thing about Social Security. Not only is it here, it's fully funded to 2035. Now, some of you are going, well, that's not very long, Dave. That's 9 years. I'm probably going to live a lot more than 9 years. And I get it, but it's fully funded to 35. After that, it's funded 83 cents on the dollar out of ongoing contributions. This isn't a, hey, Social Security is going to be broke. It's a, how do we fund 17 cents on the dollar problem, not 100 cents on the dollar. So there are a couple of options. I'll tell you the ones that they've been batting around for years. Four basic ones: increase the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64.5. That does not solve the problem, but it helps. Increase the full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. Again, doesn't solve the problem, but it helps. And it certainly helps for later years. Increase the payroll tax. This one does solve the problem if you increase it enough. 4 years ago, might be almost 5 years ago now, the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, did a study that said raising the payroll tax by 1 point, half a point to the employer, half a point to the employee, would have solved this for the next 70 years. It's probably more than that now. But does anybody here say, don't, would anybody here not raise their hand and say, charge me an extra half a point so that I don't ever have to worry about Social Security? You almost wonder why they haven't done it. I do wonder why they haven't done it. It's a simple fix, but nobody will propose this in a bill that will get to either floor. It just, nobody wants to take that ball and run with it. And then the one that everybody gets scared about because it's what they do, they like you to be worried, is reduced benefits. I've probably read 100 articles in the last 3 years, at least 100 articles, talking about what happens when. Well, here's the thing. That's not what happens. They would have to deal with this in Congress, just like they would have to deal with fixing it. It doesn't just pay less. They'd have to say, we're going to pay less, because this is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. And may I remind you that Congress has taken lots and lots of money out, always at, 2:00 in the morning. We've borrowed $150 billion from Social Security Trust Fund. Have you not read that over the years? That's happened. Lots. It's still a debt that's owed. They're not going to reduce benefits. And here's why. The whole system would collapse. The entire system would collapse. And the full faith and credit of the United States government would be done. Toast. Nobody would buy our bonds. Nobody would buy anything from us. It can't happen. So all these institutions that want you to believe that it can, who want to do things like privatize Social Security to save it, trust me, they have a skin in the game. They have tons of skin in the game. And periodically they pull it out and show it to the world when they think they've got enough leverage to be able to do it. And what is the leverage? Having you and me scared enough that we say whatever it takes. It's not real. I was at a conference I'm sorry I'm spending so much time on this, but it's so important. I was at a conference in Coronado Bay, California, last year, I think in April. 200 advisors. They invited, this is a personal invitation to get to this. I was really, really knocked off my seat to receive an invitation. It was a big deal. They had unbelievable speakers, people that I admire, that I've known for years, that I follow because they're smart guys. And in this conference, they had breakout sections, and one of the breakout sections was about Social Security, and I went to it because I thought, well, what am I going to do? I can't not go to this. This is what I talk about all the time. So I went, and they had a really good thing. But so I'm watching the moderator walk in, and there's 4 chairs for the guest speakers and the panel. And the panel, the first person I recognize is a former director of the Social Security Administration. I didn't know the middle 2. The 4th one I didn't recognize, but when they introduced him, he was also a former director of the Social Security Administration. So you have 2, one from each party, by the way. I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to get some really good skinny on what's going on. And they went through this presentation. It was great. But at the end, they did a Q&A, just like I'm going to do tonight. And at the very first question, you could tell from the room what the first question was going to be, because about 50 hands went up. And of the 50 hands, it didn't matter who you asked. They were all going to say the same thing. What about solvency? What's going to happen when Social Security runs out of money? And both of them, different parties, both former directors, both people that you would expect know more about this than anybody else, said it's not going to happen. They're not going to run out. Congress is going to do whatever they have to do to fix it. How do you know? We know. We absolutely know, because it can't fail. And then one of them said, look, 4 years ago, it's 4 years ago, it's 5 years ago now, we ran into COVID, and out of thin blue air, the government found $4.5 trillion to pay for a very temporary situation. This is neither temporary, and it's not unknown what's going to happen. If it fails, it is catastrophic. It's not going to happen. They're going to fix it. How? We don't know, but they're going to fix it. And then one of them gave an anecdote about Social Security's basic premise is that you never get less than you got before. So they explained that if Social Security's policy is, if this year your Medicare premium goes up by $100, but your Social Security cost of living increase is only $50. Under those circumstances, you should get a check next month that is $50 less than you got last year, except that Social Security's policy is that doesn't happen. Social Security does not allow you to get less than you got last year. They will reduce the Medicare premium for you to accommodate you so you get the same amount. Not more, but no less than you got last year. Period. They're not going to let this happen. And here's why I get so upset about this. 40% of us, 40% of Americans last year took 62 as their they took their benefit at the earliest possible age they could. And when we asked them why, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. All right. How are benefits determined? You get your full retirement age benefit, your FRA, at 66 or at 67. You get 100%. If you take it early, you get less. All the way to 62, you can take it and you get 75% of your benefit. If you wait and delay, you get these DRCs, delayed retirement credits. Now, they're not compounding, but they are stacking. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. You get 132% at age 70. The difference between taking your benefit at 62 and waiting and taking it at 70 is 177% more. You get 177% more than your 62 benefit at age 70. If you do the math, it doesn't take very long before you've made up the difference of not taking it early. And it takes very little past that to make a huge difference in your lifetime income. All right, 3 distinct Social Security benefits. Your benefit, the retired worker's benefit, based entirely on your earnings records alone. A spousal benefit. My spouse and I have been married 49 years. She has a benefit, and then she has a spousal benefit. The spousal benefit has nothing to do with her benefit. It's based entirely on my work history, not hers. Widower, or survivor benefits, again, based on the deceased worker's contributions, not the receiving party. Okay, Bipartisan Budget Act 2015. I'm going to do this lightning quick because it doesn't apply at all to any of us except for one thing. This changed Social Security for married couples and divorced spouses, setting up 3 sets of rules. The act didn't change it at all if you're getting widow benefits or you're single and receiving your own benefit. Here's the reason I'm going to go quick. If you're the first section is if you're born before 1950. Well, if you're born before 1950, you're 76 years old. Stop. You should have already filed. The next one is if you're born between 1950 and January 2nd, 54. If you're in that category, you're already 71 years old, 72 years old, sorry. You should have already filed as well. So it shouldn't apply to you anymore either. But if you're born after January 2nd, 1954, I'll raise my hand, then my guess is you're in our audience tonight. And this does have an effect on you. But here's what it did, and here's what they took away. But that's not why I'm bringing this up. They took away the ability for you to go in at 62 and file what's called a restricted application. This would have allowed your spouse to go in the next day and also file a restricted application for only the spousal benefit. So I go in, I file, and I suspend. So what does that do? I don't get a benefit. But because I filed and suspended, my spouse could go in and file for my spousal benefit only. Her benefit is unaffected. It's growing all the way to full retirement age, all the way to 70. My benefit is growing all the way to full retirement age, all the way to 70. But she's collecting 50% of my benefit in the meantime. It was a nice way to get some extra serious money starting at age 62. That is gone. They've taken that ability away. But why do I bring this up? Because it's sort of a non-entity, right? I bring it up because when they passed this bill, they added a thing called deemed filing. Deemed filing has created some problems for us. Deemed filing means when you walk in to file for your own benefit, when you're in earnest going to take your benefit. Deemed filing means that they're going to take your application for benefit, but you don't get to choose your benefit. Whatever the benefit is on the day that you file, that is the largest benefit, is the one that you get, period. You can't take a spousal benefit if your own benefit is more. You can't do that anymore. at all. And because of that, they're not even going to ask you what benefit you want because you don't have a choice. Because of deemed filing, you have got to know what you're going to get before you ask. Deemed filing makes timing strategies matter. If you're born after January 2nd, 54, you got to know before you file what you're doing, or they're just going to stick you with whatever. And the whatever could be absolutely not in your best interest. All right, considerations for married couples. For spousal benefits, you must have been married for at least 1 full year. Primary worker must have filed. So for a spouse to get benefits, their spouse has to have filed for their own Social Security first. My wife is getting her benefit, but she hasn't gotten mine because I'm waiting until 70. And until I turn 70 and get my benefit, she can't get it. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than 1/2 of the primary worker's PIA. PIA means primary insurance amount. It's a long, drawn out thing. In the workbook, I'll explain it to you, but it teaches you how to figure out what your amount is going to be. But it's so close to your full retirement age benefit. I don't know why they just don't adapt the other one. And then you get 50% of that of your spouse primary insurance amount, or they're close to their full retirement age benefit. Here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement is $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for 1/2 at her full retirement age. She would then be entitled to 1,000. Pretty simple, right? She just gets half. It's a little more complicated. If you take your benefit early, you get less, right? All the way to 62, you don't get 100%, you get 75%. Well, Jane is in the same ballpark, except she doesn't get on this. If she's filing for a spousal benefit, she doesn't get 75%, she gets 70%. So John's benefit is 2,000. Jane's full retirement age benefit is 1,000. If she takes it at 62, she only gets 70% of that, or $700. Make sense? Okay. Oop. Okay. Survivor benefit, death of the first spouse. A surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit. Obviously, they can take their own benefit, the benefit of the deceased. So I can switch, I can take one or the other, or 82.5% of the PIA of the deceased if the deceased filed early. Remember, I was talking about this when solvency. 40% of us in the last 2 years have taken our benefit at the earliest possible age at 62. Well, what happens then? What happens if I die? Well, now my wife's got a smaller benefit, much smaller, that she's inherited. So the government has come in, and because this has happened way more than they expected, they've bumped that for the surviving spouse from 70% to 82.5%. Okay. All right. Most common mistakes: higher wage earner files early, short changes survivor benefits, both delay past full retirement age. No one claims the spousal benefits. Both of these happen every single day to the tunes of thousands. All right, considerations for divorced individuals. Divorced benefits, divorced spousal benefits. To qualify, you must have been married not 1 year, but 10 full years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties, no switching partners in the middle of the dance. You've got to be married for 10 years to the same person in a row, period. You can't currently be married. If you remarry, you were divorced and you remarry, you do not have divorced spouse benefits. You have current spouse benefits. Here's the only exception to that. If your current spouse, you divorce, or they pass away, those previous spouse benefits magically come back on the table. and are available to you. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. There is zero difference between a spousal benefit and a divorced spouse benefit, with one exception. It's a pretty big exception. It's called the independently entitled rule for divorced individuals. If my wife, I told you I've been married 49 years, if my wife wants to go get spousal benefits, she can't because I haven't filed yet. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, that no longer applies. Whether I filed or not, she's eligible to get the benefit. Shouldn't have to wait anymore. That's the only difference. But it's demonstrative. Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced individuals. Look, no change if you're born prior to May 1st, 1950. No change if you're born between May 1st, 1950 and January 2nd, 54. Except that you still can't do this. But if you are older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you could claim your own benefit as early as 62. You could switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit once your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouse marriages that were at least 10 years long that you're divorced to. I've seen this happen with people who have had 3 of these, but I've never seen 4. I'm sure it's out there, but I've never seen it. Common mistakes or common questions we get asked for divorced individuals. Do divorce benefits affect current spouse or other dependents? I'm always surprised at how concerned people are about that, but they don't. You could have 2 ex-spouses, a current spouse. They could all receive benefits without being affected from the same person. Is my ex notified or not notified by Social Security if I'm claiming under their record? So this is probably the most common question I get. And the answer is no. Just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your health information with anybody without your written permission, Social Security can't share your information with anybody else. Here's the only exception. If you can prove with a marriage license and a final divorce decree from a court that you were married for 10 years to somebody, they will give you the information you need to know if you qualify to file on their benefits. That's it. That's it. But you'll need to prove it that way before they'll do it. Okay. Operation or considerations for widows and widowers. To qualify for survivor benefits, widower benefits, you must be at least 60 years old. This is the only benefit that you can get for retirement purposes that you can get before 62. You must have remained unmarried, though. So if your spouse died at 35, you cannot get married even for a day between 35 and 60 and qualify for these benefits. If you're married even a day, you no longer have these. But if you marry a day after your 60th birthday, you still qualify. You had to have been married a minimum of 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. Couple of exceptions. There are very few. Member of the Armed Services of the United States killed in the line of duty. Full-time fireman killed in the line of duty. Full-time law enforcement officer in the United States killed in the line of duty. Those are it. That's it. Otherwise, you had to be married at least 9 months. Back in the 30s, they used to put in the movies the deathbed romance. They have these old 90-year-old guys marrying these 20-year-old women so they could collect the Social Security. That does not happen anymore. It just doesn't work that way. All right, I'm going to do a couple of case studies, and let me do this one first. This is really about it's a widow case study, but it's really about when filing and why filing correctly is so important and makes such a difference. This is Jane. Her husband's name was John. He never elected and died before he took benefits at age 64. Benefit at his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger, age 59 when John passed away. She remains unmarried until her age 60. Jane estimated benefit on her own. This is her benefit, not his, which she doesn't qualify for yet. She'd have to reach age 62 to qualify. That's $1,197. All right, I call the first one file without thinking. It's what so many people do. We walk into Social Security or we set an appointment and we don't have a clue what we're getting or what's available to us. We just ask. In fact, Social Security tells us the most common question is, how much can I get? We're saying, hey, you tell me. And I'm telling you, that is a bad position to be in. First off, they're just going to give you the raw facts. And they're not going to answer questions that you don't ask. And they're not going to tell you that you're asking the wrong question. Their job is to answer whatever question you ask, as long as it's legal to answer it. That doesn't help you in so many cases. So if we do this and you walk in and you ask that question, though, they're going to tell you, look, the only benefit that you qualify today because you're 60 years old is for the survivor benefit. That's $1,537 a month. It's not $2,150 because you're taking it at 60, not at 66 or 67. So you say, okay, I'll take that. So we're going to do simple math here. No rolled in cost of living. It just confuses the issue. I'm just going to show you simple numbers. So if you take it at 60, we're going to assume you live to 25 more years to 85. 1,537 times 300 months, 25 more years, is $461,101. If you decide maybe I don't want that, what are my other options? Strategy one would be, maybe you've got a job, you're working, making $40,000, $50,000 a year, work 2 more years. If you work 2 more years, then you can take your own benefit. Now, it's not going to be a lot. It starts off at $1,197 a month, but your survivor benefit is growing and it maxes out at your full retirement age. So at 67, you switch. And now you go from $1,197 to $2,150. Look at the difference here. It's almost $80,000 more, $538,000 instead of $461,000. Now, many people say strategy 2 is the best option. She says, look, I can't wait 2 years. I got to have a benefit now. So she takes the survivor benefit. She gets $1,537 a month, but her own benefit is still there. She can't take them both at once, but guess what? Her own benefit is growing all the way to full retirement age, but it doesn't max out there. It maxes out after those 8% DRCs accumulate all the way to 70. And at 70, it's not $1,197 anymore. It's $2,108 a month. So that's when she switches. And look at the difference, $563,904, more than $102,000 more over her lifetime. Look, I don't know anybody. I don't care how much money people have. You just can't walk away from $100,000 of income in retirement. It's a big, big deal. But it requires just being sure and knowing what you're doing and somebody having your back, I guess. All right, in the year that you take your Social Security, if you do it at 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you, 66, and you continue to work, if you make more than $24,480, for every $2 over that, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security back, period. Let me put that in starker terms. Let's say you make $2,000 a month in Social Security, but you made $58,000 last year. At the end of the year, no hoopla, no bangs are going to go off, but when you file your taxes, you're going to get a letter about 2 months later. that says, hey, all of that 24,000 that we paid you from Social Security last year, we want back with interest. That is not a good way to start retirement. It is just not a good way, because the interest that they're charging you is probably more than the interest that you're getting if you shoved it into a CD. And you're not shoving it in all at once anyway, so it's probably not a good idea. This is something you have to avoid. You've got to pay attention to this. I know people think, oh, I'll just do that. I'm just going to take it early because I want some extra money. I want to buy a car for retirement. I want to take a retirement trip. I want to do this. I want to do that. You got to understand that this can backfire on you. Pay attention. In the year that you turn full retirement age, you can earn 65,160. For most of you, it's 66 or 67. In that year, if you earn more than $65,160 before you take your or after you take your benefit, then for every $3 over that, you're going to get $1 of your benefit pulled back. Now, if you're born in November, this probably isn't going to be a problem for you unless you're making millions of dollars a year. If for most of us, it's going to make a difference if you're born, before June or July. But you need to pay attention. If you earn that money before you retire, before you stop, before your birthday, it's not a big deal. There's no benefit. But since the Social Security Administration does not get a record of when you earn the money, you should keep your pay stubs. My CPA always tells me at least keep the last two because they'll have the ongoing amount. But you'll want to keep them during the period that you took Social Security so that you can prove that money was earned prior to me taking my Social Security. Now, once you've hit full retirement age, 66 or 67, you can earn $1 bazillion and there's zero reduction in your benefit. It's absolutely zero cost to you. But if you earn a lot of money, you are going to have to pay taxes. Now, I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because you really don't have to earn very much to have to worry about taxes with Social Security. Now, you shouldn't have to worry at all about Social Security because you already paid tax on it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you may or may not know this, but in 1935, when the Social Security bill was written into law, Social Security was set up as a tax-free retirement account or retirement income. It was never intended to be taxed. But you remember when I told you about 1983 being a special year for Social Security and baby boomers? It's also the year that they decided to tax Social Security and target baby boomers. Now, I'll explain why in a second, but let me just explain this to you. It was never supposed to be taxed. How do I know it's taxed, Dave? Do you get a deduction for your FICO score or your FICO amount that you put in? You have thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars every year in FICO. Do you get any deduction for that? No. There's no 1040 line. There's no easy line. There's no thing. You don't get a deduction for it because just like a Roth account, if you pay tax up front, you shouldn't pay tax afterwards, right? That's not the way it works anymore. Because in 1983, they saw baby boomers as a huge problem for Social Security, and they wanted to fix it. And they targeted us very, very well. Now, if you think this isn't complicated, you can get form publication 915, irs.gov/forms 915. It's 33 pages long with a nice worksheet to tell you how to fill out your taxes with Social Security on them. It's not simple. It's complex. But maybe more importantly, it is absolutely strung not in your favor anymore. This chart was created by Congress in 1983. This is what I mean when I say they targeted baby boomers. So this is for provisional income. If you haven't written anything else down tonight, I hope you write that down. Provisional income. If you're single and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. I always get a chuckle when I read that 85 because there are 2,752 pages of Social Security bill, 83 devoted to taxes. There's this one line in the tax language that says we never tax 15% of your Social Security. Isn't that generous? If you're a married couple, doesn't matter how you're filing jointly, separately, doesn't matter. Your total income is 32,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. 44,000 of provisional income means 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Okay, I can hear some of you saying, what the heck is provisional income, Dave? Let me go through it. Provisional income includes and has included since 1983 all your W-2, all your gross income, all pensions, doesn't matter what kind of pension, military, private, doesn't matter, all wages, all interest income, all tax-exempt interest income. Maybe you think, hey, I've done a really good job. I've set myself up so I'm going to have tax-free income. I bought a bunch of municipal bonds. I've layered them. I've stacked them. Absolutely tax-free, except it counts 100% as provisional income. All 1099 income, 100% of it. Doesn't matter from what source. You're doing sales, you're doing real estate, you're doing whatever, 100% of it counts as provisional income. All real estate income, get a money from a real estate transaction, 1035 exchange, 1031 exchange, doesn't matter, 100% counts. You have really smartly invested in real estate to get tax advantages by dealing with rental incomes. And you think, there's such benefit to do that you may reduce your tax bill tremendously, except 100% of that counts as provisional income. Business income. Maybe you own dividend stocks and you get a dividend from those stocks. It counts as provisional income. Partnership income, small business, subchapter S corporations, LLCs that produce, or a partnership that produces K1 income, extra income, profits from that business that get distributed to you, or even not distributed to you, but you get a K1 at the end of the year that says you had $25,000 of distributable profits, even though you didn't get them because you kept them in the company so you could expand or buy equipment or do something, and you'll get it later because you've already paid tax on it, but it counts 100% as provisional income. Maybe you're like my daughter and son-in-law who overpay their taxes so that they get a big refund next year. And they use that refund. It's like a forced savings plan for them. They use that refund to be able to buy cars or do home improvements or take vacations. 100% of that tax refund counts as provisional income in the year that you receive it. All right, here's the important ones. Hold on to your seats. Do you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP, any tax deferred account where you put money in and didn't pay tax and it grew tax deferred, and then when you take it out you pay tax on it, 100% of that counts as provisional income. I see some of you scratching your head. Wait a minute. My advisors for years have been telling me, pour money into my IRA, pour money into my 401k, because, hey, it'll build up tax deferred, it'll grow tax deferred, and I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I retire, so I'll pay less taxes. If you do the math on it, that might be one of the craziest things you ever heard. I'm not saying it's completely crazy, but look, what they didn't take into account or talk about, what they didn't plan for, is that it may force you to pay tax on something that you already paid tax on and that you were never initially intended to pay tax on in the first place. This is, I dare say, it's bankrupting people in retirement left and right. It is a massive problem. These taxes are killing people in retirement. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to do a case study on this because it is so important that you recognize it. If you haven't filed yet, you're not taking your benefit, you still have time to fix some of this before it's too late. Oh, yeah. I didn't mention one other. Listen to this. 50%, one half of your Social Security counts as provisional income. Half of the amount that you're making that they're trying to measure to see if you make too little so that they wouldn't tax you, they're adding half of it in to the rest of your income to try and push you over the hedge so you do pay tax. It's messed up. It is, it is a huge, huge issue. Let me dig in because I just need to show you. Bear with me a second here. By the way, I said Target a couple of times. If that 44,000 that you saw for a married couple filing jointly, or it doesn't mean if they're filing jointly, the married couple, 44,000 means 85% of their Social Security. That 44,000, if it had received the same proration that Social Security had received, that 44,000 today would be 142,000, and I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. But that has never been prorated, not even once. That's why I say they targeted our baby boomers. If you earn 44,000, if your parents or grandparents probably earned $44,000 42 years ago, 43 years ago, or 43 years ago, they would have been amongst the top 2% income earners in retirement in our country. Period. They were wealthy. This was never intended to affect them, never intended to affect our parents. It was aimed directly at us, and they said it and they forgot it, waiting for inflation to take over. And that's exactly what's happened. All right. I'm running a tad over here, so this is super important, so bear with me. This is a case study on a typical retirement age couple. This is very common, very, very common. A married couple, 64 and 62, just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if both retire at age 62, or both take their Social Security at age 62. Their starting retirement was $752,000 in 401ks and IRAs and assets. Listen to this, folks. So you're saying that's it? Only 752,000? Yeah. Well, if you think that's it, I get it. But this couple with only 752,000 has a tax problem, a huge one. And if you're thinking 752,000, that's a lot of money, Dave. This couple with that much money has a running out of money problem. We're going to give them a 6% annual return on their investments, 3% inflation. They need $70,000 per year in inflation-adjusted after-tax income. We're going to assume they live to 86 and 89, respectively. Let's take a look. If this couple retires, takes their Social Security at 62, they are walking away from $186,496 in Social Security. They're just saying, "Hey, I earned that. I paid for it, but I'm not gonna wait long enough to get it. I want to go early." And look, it's their right, but they need every dime of this to survive to survive retirement. They cannot make this decision. And if they did a simple planning, they would have known that before they did it. This is a cash flow. This is the couple doing exactly what they just did. They took their benefits at 62. They walked away from that 186,000. Here's what it looks like. The blue bars are their Social Security. The orange bars are their $752,000. Now it's growing. It's still growing. We're giving them 6% return on it. The black line that you see that's sort of graded up, that's the $70,000 income need. At the end of the orange bars, that white space, that empty space there is empty because they've run out of money. They made it 2/3 of the way through their retirement, and then they are absolutely broke, living on Social Security. Do you remember when I said before, very early, 46.1% of Americans end up with less than enough to fund their own funeral? This couple started off with 752,000, and 2/3 of the way through retirement, that's exactly where they are. Now, look, can they survive? Yeah, but not in any kind of lifestyle that they were living before. That they are going to have to dramatically change how they live at this point. This is not the way to deal with retirement. You need to make the changes before you do this, not after you're on this path. Okay, this is a corrected cash flow. This is the same couple, the same amount of money, every parameter is the same except one. They don't take Social Security early. And there's two. They don't take Social Security early. And look, they still retire early. They still retire at 62. But look at where they spend the money from. It's those orange dollars, the 401ks, the IRAs. Why? They have never paid tax on 401k money, on IRA money. They've never paid tax on it. So when they take it out, they absolutely have to pay tax. But the blue money you already paid tax on. Why would you set yourself up to pay twice? By doing this, by measuring out and having a plan, they have made it to the end of retirement without going broke. It's a massive difference. You tell me, which one would you rather have? It's sort of a no-brainer. This, by the way, there's lots of other stuff we could have done for them, but nothing makes an impact as much as what I just showed you. All right, federal tax, way less. I'm going to skip a little bit of this, but look, this is an easy answer. 186,000 more in taxes. If they made it through retirement, it was literally $100,000 less in federal taxes. It's a massive deal that you cannot ignore. If you look at your statement, Social Security is never going to give you an estimate of what COLA is going to be next year or the following year or the following year. You have to have some way of looking at it to conservatively project some, to have some idea of what retirement is actually going to look like. It also assumes that you're going to work to 62 or 70 or your full retirement age, and you may not pick that as your actual retirement age. And maybe the most egregious thing at all, the one that bugs me the most, I've been married 49 years. My wife and I have one pile of gold We have investment accounts in both our names. We have a house in both our names. We have a car in both our names. We have checking and savings accounts in both our names, but we don't have separate money. But Social Security looks at her and me like we don't know each other. It will not show me how to coordinate with her. And to me, that's just crazy. And they do not, will not, cannot offer you advice. AARP says whether you're close to retiring or just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings record each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. It's important to know and be aware that some changes have statutes of limitations on them. You shouldn't wait. All right. Every time I do one of these, I offer a personal Social Security analysis. Let me rephrase that. A complimentary personal Social Security analysis. It's free. Now, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to explain what's included in that. What do we do? I'm going to explain who does it for you. And then I'm going to go and explain why we do it. Fair enough? Bear with me for a minute. All right, what's included? It's going to show you break evens. Now, I will tell you, I think this is the least important thing we show, but it's the thing that most people ask about. I'll show you the break evens. When does it make no sense to wait? And then it's a program that is easy to implement and understand. It's not going to take you, we're going to put it in terms that you are easily able to comprehend and understand. We're not going to give you a course in Social Security vocabulary and make you say words that you don't want to say. We're going to show you alternatives and how to deal with shortfalls. What if I don't have enough, Dave? What are my options? And what if I don't like this? What if I want to do it this way? What does that look like and how does it compare? And then we're going to look at retirement income, cash flow, and tax analysis. How do we save money and taxes? I mean, it's the bottom line. How much can I save and how do I do it? And what should I do to do it? And when can I start? And we'll look at an income plan. So, are you estimating too much from the assets you have in terms of the income you need? Are you underestimating how much you can get from the assets you have towards income that you want? Those happen both almost as often as the other. And then what about Roth? Look, the only thing that's not in that list of provisional income that counts is Roth. So should I be doing Roth? And if so, how much and when? And no offense, Dave, if you're telling me I should be doing Roth, don't just tell me, show me what will it actually save me? And when will I see that benefit? And then how do I coordinate the benefits? So many people I've talked to over my career, thousands. If you knew the people that came to me and said, "Hey, I have a plan," but when I ask about the plan, nobody has coordinated stuff. If you don't have something that's looking at everything, I will tell you, people have come to me with plans that didn't even include Social Security. They didn't do a really good job of figuring out what your income need actually is and what you want. And so many people say, "Oh, I can live on $5,000 a month. I can live on $3,000." But do you really want to do that? And no offense, how are you going to make that happen? And what if you could live on more than that and you don't know? If nobody is coordinating Social Security, your qualified and non-qualified assets, your IRAs, your 401ks, your pension plans, your life insurance, your TSPs, if they're not doing all that, then with all due respect, you don't have a retirement plan. And I will tell you, a retirement plan that isn't really a retirement plan is not a good start to retirement. All right. If you haven't done this already, download your statement. You can go to www.ssa.gov. If you haven't done that already, you need to do it anyway. So go. If you haven't done it, you'll need to set up a password that will and a login that will be with you for the rest of your life. It is easy to use, simple to do, and you can print off your statement right there, and then you'll be able to schedule your complimentary consultation. You can do that first, but I'm going to give you two options tonight in terms of what they are. So, in a minute, I'm going to ask our tech team to put up in the chat section a login. It'll be a link. You just click on it, and it'll take you right to it. They'll also put up a QR code. If you don't know how to use the QR code, just hold your camera up to it. Don't take a picture, but hold your camera up to it. There'll be a yellow rectangle or orange rectangle at the bottom. Touch that, it'll take you right to it. And if that doesn't work, take a screenshot of it and then touch the screenshot and it'll take you right to it. But that'll take you, and it's going to ask you some questions, and it'll give you two options. Option one is this. You have got everything we talked about. It's the filing strategy, the tax strategy overview, the retirement asset and Social Security coordination. It's the whole kit and caboodle. It is 100% complimentary, and it's world class. That's what you get in option one. But Dave, I don't have money in 401ks. I don't have money in IRAs. I don't have any of that stuff. I just got Social Security. Or, maybe I've got some tiny bit of savings in a CD or something. If your income isn't any of it isn't coming from 401ks, from IRAs, from tax deferred accounts, it's just Social Security, you don't have a tax problem. You have a timing problem. And for that, I have created the workbook. That's option two. If all you need is that, it's my compliments to give it to you this evening. It's there for you. Option one, the whole kit and caboodle, the whole plan, complimentary. Option two, the workbook, which will solve that problem if you don't have assets that are going to be affected by this. All right. Let me explain who's going to do this. And then I'm going to take a minute and I'll go quick. I'm going to take a minute and just explain why we do this. So I've asked a really good friend of mine, he's also an employee, he's an advisor in my firm, Taylor Cox, to do this. He's offered generously to do this. This is a lot of work, but he's cleared a schedule to help you out and to do this. Taylor has a bachelor's in finance. After school, he worked for a Fortune 500 company as an ops manager. He has a master's in accounting. After he got his master's, guess who he worked for? The IRS. Taylor is an expert in taxes. There is nobody in my company that's better than him. I mean, how do you get better than having worked for the IRS? He understands it backwards and forwards. He's the best of the best. Now, Taylor's always wanted to work one-on-one with people, which is why he left the IRS. But before he came into our space, and I'm so grateful he did, he wound up writing financial articles for a massively big, I won't name the magazine, but you would recognize it. It's world class. It's well known. It's the kind of stuff that if you're in our industry, you read. And if you're not in our industry, you read. He's a proficient writer and excellent at it. But to be a financial writer, it requires incredible gifts. He is that guy, having given advice to people like me through those articles. And then he's just top of the heap. Look, I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of the work that we do. We've done so many of these, but I want to explain why we do them. Just 1 minute, bear with me. Here's the thing. It's a lot of money. This is a big thing for us. It's not cheap to set somebody's, this is probably going to take weeks to get through. Why do we do it? Because we know that if you show people unbelievable quality in the work that you do, then you impress them, they almost always want more. That's what this is about. I'm just being upfront with you. I know that if you sit down with Taylor and you see the kind of work he does, not only is it going to be incredibly helpful to you, but you're going to go, if you've got somebody else that's done this for you or is doing it for you, you're going to be, wow, what a difference. That's the difference. That's why we do this. Because when you offer something that is so good, people want it. But this is how we let people know how good it is. That this is a big trust because you're hoping that we're as good as we say we are. So are we, but we know it. Take a leap. Sit down with them. You're going to be unbelievably impressed. I promise you. That look, I love Costco. My wife and I go to Costco on a regular basis. It's a bit of a drive. It's completely on the other side of town for us. But we go because it saves us some money. But really, I go, and I go on Saturdays, by the way. I work during the week, but also because it's so crowded. My wife hates it. But if you walk into Costco on a Saturday, if some of you don't have Costco, you've got BJ Wholesale or Sam's Club or something else. But for my area, it's Costco. You walk in on a Saturday morning, and there are at every nook and cranny of the store, somebody has got a cart and they're frying or baking or microwaving something that I've never had or even heard of. And I love to test stuff. I'll go and try it. And my wife and I have a system. We don't even talk about it. She just looks at me. And if I try something and get a big smile on my face, she says, we'll take one. And if I nudge her, that means two. Because if I buy something, if I see something and try it, I like it, I usually want to buy some. That's why we do this. We're giving you a free taste at Costco. But we're giving you something that is, I'm not giving you a taste, I'm giving you a whole meal. You're going to love this. I promise you. Look, there was this guy. What was his name? John Houseman. He was an actor in the 70s. He was in a movie called The Paper Chase. He played Professor Kingsley. He was a contract law professor at Harvard University, and he was English, and he spoke with this deep accent. But afterwards, in the early 80s, he did these commercials, and he had this line. He said, "We get business the old-fashioned way. We earn it." That's what we're doing. That's it. We're earning it. Thank you for that privilege. All right. I'm going to ask our tech team to open up. They'll put the link in, and then we will also put the QR code in, and we are ready for the Q&A. There's the QR code. I'm going to take a quick sip of water before we get our first question. All right, here we go. Thanks for sticking with me. Okay. Looks like we have quite a few questions. By the way, if you're on your phone, you can still use the QR code. There we go. Okay, first question. This is from Barbara. I was born in 1954. I applied for my Social Security at 65. The Social Security told me I could get my ex-husband's Social Security. I think you mean couldn't, even though he had not started his benefits. Oh, maybe you mean could. I've been getting his Social Security for years now. Good for you. So proof in the pudding. That's exactly what I was talking about. Thanks, Barbara, for that antidote. Okay, why not? Will there be a replay available? No, but if you rewind or you just use the same link, we usually have this up for 12 hours or so. We have multiple things going on during the week, so it's impossible to keep them up. It gets so confusing for new people. So, but if you keep that link and you just re-access it immediately afterwards, you can watch it, and you'll be able to watch it later tonight. Great question. Okay, in Nancy's asking, where is the link? Nancy, it's in the, it's three answers above you in the chat. This is Jack. How is my Social Security affected when I take half of my wife's Social Security? I'm 62, 65, 67. If I'm 62, 65, 67, etc., does it matter when she takes her Social Security? Does her benefit adjust higher or lower based on when she takes it? Her benefit definitely adjusts based on when she takes it, but not on when you take it. You taking her benefit doesn't affect her at all. But Jack, if you take her benefit, whether it's at 62, 65, 67, or 70, first off, you never want to wait past full retirement age because you don't get any additional benefit from a spousal by waiting past that. So that's option. That's number one. Number two, if you go to take yours after age 62, they're going to measure whether yours is higher than hers. And if yours is higher than hers, that's what that deemed filing is. They're going to give you yours. You're going to be forced to take the larger benefit, and then you're done. If you take hers, you're also going to be done because it will be the larger benefit. Those are the options. Great question. Okay, next question. Our tech team seems to be having some problems. Bear with us, folks. There we go. Beth, I'm retiring in the next 5 months. Is it too late to transfer some of my 401k to Roth? No, but the question is, are you taking your Social Security? And Beth, this is exactly why I would suggest you meet with Taylor. You want to have a plan to do this exactly right and to reduce your tax bill as much as possible. That's exactly why I'm suggesting this. Great question, but it is not too late. Okay, next question. Wow. Maybe that was the last question. Okay. Let me, interesting. All right. Let me give you about 30 seconds here in case somebody else has a question, but it looks like we may have gotten to the end of them. I don't know if that means I did a particularly bad job or a particularly good job. Okay, looks like we've got a couple more coming in. Okay, Mark, is this, I'm going to say Marge. I'm not sure, but I hope so. Do I understand that when I take my benefits at 66 and 10 months, I'm locked in at that benefit amount? So at 70, I would not receive the higher benefit. That is correct. When you take your benefit, you have locked it in. The only additions you will get after that are for cost of living increases. No more additional 8% delayed retirement credits, no additional amount at 70, nothing. Marge, if you take it at 66 and 10 months, you've taken the full retirement age benefit, but you opt out on all the other ones after that. Great question. Okay. I see Michelle here says did E. I'm not sure what that means. No problem, Marge. You're welcome. Okay. All right. I am going to Wish you all a wonderful, wonderful evening. If you haven't taken that, yeah, okay. If you haven't taken advantage of that offer with Taylor, I would do it now. It's still available to you. But I'm going to wish you a wonderful evening. May you all have wonderful planning and a wonderful, wonderful retirement. Oh, Michelle's got one last question I'm going to answer real quick. Does money from an inheritance count as provisional income? No, no, it doesn't. Great question. No, it doesn't. All right. I bid you all good night and a wonderful retirement. Take care. Bye bye.